Knowing what I know now, would I do it all over again? Yes, I would. No question about it. I wouldn't be who I am and where I am today if it weren't for how my story played out, scars and all. Many years ago, I decided to pack up my belongings in Europe and start on a new journey in the US. Having lived in Europe all of my life, adjusting to a different country with a different culture wasn't an easy task. I don't think one really understands the term culture until you've actually lived in different countries. The first few years were the hardest, but failure just wasn't an option for me, as well as not wanting to lose face and return home in shame. Sometimes I do let my mind wander and think about how my life would have panned out had I just returned home and not gone through everything I did here. However, as I mentioned above, I wouldn't change a thing. I found a job relatively quickly. Dual citizenship helped, of course. I started dating after a while, and everything was fine for a few months. The relationship, however, didn't work out as I had hoped back then, and a breakup was imminent. The breakup was hard on me for various reasons. For one, I've focused too much on one person, not realizing that by putting so much focus on that one person, I wasn't actively processing everything going on within me. Missing my family, missing my friends, missing being able to just go out of the house and go for a walk, missing nature. In order to get anywhere in the US, you had to hop in a car. Again, culturally, a big adjustment for me. I used to ride my bike to work every single day. I felt detached from everything I used to know and was comfortable and familiar with. I was completely outside of my comfort zone, and I guess at that point, didn't really know how to approach my discomfort. Technology during that time wasn't where it's at right now either. WhatsApp, Skype, Viber, none of these were readily available as they are now. There was no one to reach out to unless you were capable of footing a large bill for it. I just wasn't in that position. I felt alone, deeply and truly alone. While I've made friends, those friends weren't at a comfort level to truly pour out one's heart. Thinking back now, I can still feel some of that anxiety and pain that came along with feeling such isolation. One day, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. It all became too much. And that day, I decided that I was going to end it. I was hoping that sleeping pills and alcohol would do the trick, ease the pain, and that I'd just slip away. To think of the pain that I would have caused my parents and friends overseas. I've never told my parents about this episode of my life either. I still remember that night vividly. I do not remember how many pills I've swallowed, but I do remember most of that night. I cannot remember what I wore yesterday, but I do remember that night. I was sitting on my couch, having a full-blown conversation about how I just didn't want to go on anymore. There was this little purple creature laying next to me on the couch. I remember its face. It was all wrinkled and scrunched up. Its mouth was moving and it was talking to me. It appeared to be on top of what looked like a big purplish white comforter. It's really hard to explain when you weren't actually there witnessing it. I do not remember the exact words coming out of its mouth, but I do remember that on one hand, I was completely creeped out, and on the other hand, the conversation was comforting and calming. While all of this happened, I didn't realize how crazy this story would be to anyone other than myself, and also thought that I was losing my mind. Considering that I had taken all those pills, it wouldn't have been too far-fetched of an idea. The next morning, I woke up, still on my couch, empty pill boxes and an empty vodka bottle on the living room table, confirming the plans of the previous night. The reality of what I had actually tried to do was a hard pill to swallow, no pun intended. There was lots of shame, probably the reason why no one but myself knows this story. As time passed, the shame was still there, but there was also gratitude. The things I would have missed out on had that night worked out as planned. What happened that night was pushed to the back of my brain as I've tried to blame swallowing those pills along with the alcohol on my delusions of that night. Anything else, many years have passed, and while I still, even to this day, remember that night vividly, I have moved on to live a mostly happy life. I've become successful in my job, turned that night's shame into survival mode and pushed through all the negativity I'd felt in those years of my life in the US. I've started to appreciate all that it had to offer. I was simply happy. I found the love of my life, got married, became pregnant. I was looking forward to starting my family. Life was good. My child was born on a beautiful summer's afternoon. I was in the hospital at 6:00 a.m., and my child was welcomed into this world a few hours later. Without going into too many details, there were some short-lived complications, and they had to whisk my child away for a few minutes to make sure she was okay instead of giving her to me straight away. My husband was holding her when she was handed to me. She was wrapped tightly in a purple blanket, a purple hat, and a wrinkled up purple face. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. I was stunned beyond words. I recognized the creature. I don't think I've ever cried harder in my life than when I first looked at her and the realization hit me. Everyone thought I was just seeing my baby for the first time, but I knew better. She was the reason I survived that night. She was telling me that my job here on earth wasn't done yet. What I saw that night never made more sense to me than it did in that very moment. The fact that I almost missed out on the beauty of life, as it is today, numbs me sometimes. Don't get me wrong, there are days that just aren't what I would like for them to be, but we all have good and bad days. I've never come close again to feeling what I felt that night, and nothing will ever get me to that place of despair again. There's appreciation and gratitude in life that I didn't have before. The moral of the story is, don't give up, ever. Darkness will subside and light will shine through brighter than before. For me, it's true what they say. If you want to see the sunshine, you've got to weather the storm.